electrical technologist. So I do drawings and designs for buildings around the city, and coordinate between different sectors of engineers and stuff, and communicate with clients and all the fun stuff.
All right, perfect. Andrea, did you want to do a little explanation?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a lab manager at Brock University. I'm currently working in the Paul Zelisko lab. So we do silicone chemistry as well as lipids for drug delivery. And I went to Loyalist College and got my technologist diploma. And I have also worked in the pharmaceutical industry for both, well, for humans, I did pharmacy work, and for animals, pharmaceutical manufacturing.
That is awesome. Thank you. Derek, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Derek. My background's in electrical engineering technology. I graduated from Niagara College. And I also work in the water wastewater industry. I worked at a contractor that did work for many different municipalities over the years for about 2 years. And now I'm at Niagara Region, working for a singular municipality doing the automation and control aspects of the plant.
Okay, perfect. And Komla, can you do a little explanation too?
Hi everyone. My name is Kamal, and I went to Niagara College for electrical engineering technology as well. I currently work for Hatch, and I'm a junior electrical designer there. We mostly work on wastewater treatment plants and currently on railway systems. So I work directly with engineers to work on the design plan, etc.
That's amazing. I love how everyone is in kind of still in the tech field, but everyone has a different role throughout the tech field. Really amazing. So to get us started, this is kind of a general question for everyone. Everyone can go through and answer from the panelists. What inspired you guys to have the career you guys have?
Okay, I'll jump in. So when I was in school, I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to pursue. So when I always kind of had an inclination that I wanted to be in the STEM field, and I ended up pursuing just engineering at McMaster originally. It was just a general, a general first year. So I thought it would be good to kind of feel out what you were looking for, and I really think that you get a good vibe of a mix of all of the disciplines when you do a general program like that, if you're not sure. So I just focused on something that I knew I had a vested interest in, and hoped furthering my education would be something that would help me kind of narrow down my topics. And I ended up choosing civil engineering and then further on to civil technology.
That's amazing. I like how you had an idea that you wanted the STEM field but weren't super sure. That's great, because I think there's a lot of students who kind of have the same idea as you. Would anybody else like to say what inspired them to be in the tech field?
Sure, I can go. I always loved science. I really enjoyed it, and I just was like, I'm going into it. That's what I'm doing, and I decided to go to college and get my diploma that way, and just go straight into work after that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Would anybody else like to say what inspired them?
I'll go. Actually, I'm kind of in the same boat as Andrea. I knew I wanted to go into sciences. I went through my entire undergrad in sciences and then figured, okay, now I need a job. So I figured I better go back to college. And chemical engineering technology just seemed to kind of go hand in hand with my degree. And I knew it would be that extra little step that my resume would have, for instance, that would kind of set me aside from others. So that's why I chose to go into the technology field.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I like how you still weren't super sure, but with knowing what your interests were, you're able to figure it out. Yeah, that's awesome. Kamal, would you like to say what inspired you?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about it, and mostly since I was a kid, I really enjoyed making stuff and really trying to understand how things are done. So when I was looking at my college degrees, electrical engineering seemed something like where I would get to build stuff or at least understand how things work. And now that I work as a designer, I actually get an insight into how all of that is done. So it's pretty cool. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do we have anybody else that would like to say, or are we good to move on?
I can speak.
Perfect, thank you.
I originally was in biology actually, in my undergrad, and that didn't really speak to me. So I took a shot, and someone suggested to me electrical engineering technology, and I really fell in love with it in my co-ops during my work experiences. Getting the hands-on was really big for me.
That's awesome. Do we have anybody else that would like to say what inspired them?
Yeah, actually, I think I'm the last one. I guess like most of us, I kind of always loved architecture, always loved building stuff like Lego and all that stuff from way before. But yeah, always had a passion for it and just kind of followed the passion.
All right, perfect. So another question we had for you guys is, what is your typical workday like? Like, what are the hours, and like, what is your like duty that you do for each of your occupations?
I can go first. Our work days are 7 a.m. to 3:30, Monday to Friday. And here in Niagara Region, we have 16 different water and wastewater plants, and our group services all of them. So it's a lot of different different locations every day that we go to, and we get to kind of go to all the plants through the region, all the way from Fort Erie to Grimsby, and do different projects.
That's perfect. Thank you. Anybody else want to share?
I can go if that's all right with everyone. I like academics. It's a little bit more flexible than industry, but a typical day is like 9 to 5. You go into the lab, you do research, take your lunch. Sometimes, you know, you might work over hours if you're doing certain research projects that involve you having to be there and watch the experiment. And some days you get off early. And again, vacations. Typically, Christmas, you get like 2 weeks off with the students as well. And yeah, so I really like working in research. Industry is, again, flexible hours, but it's all over the place because some labs do 24 hours versus 9 to 5. Depends on where you work.
That's great. Thank you so much. Would anybody else like to share?
So I came from consulting world to the government industry from wastewater, water, and our industry. Like when I was in consulting, the hours were a standard. More so, they had core hours, so you were working based on when your client really needed you, but you had a core set of hours between about 9 to 2. You really wanted to be available for your client, and then kind of on the consulting end, you were able to kind of have a little bit more flexibility on either end of that. Now working for the region, it's a 8:30 to 4:30. I work in the water, wastewater with, Derek is saying the 16 plants that we have, and it's pretty standard hours. We do have construction projects that sometimes change, but the flexibility is there. And I would say it's about 80% in office and 20% in the field.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else want to share before we move on?
Yeah, I have something to say. So I'm actually the same way as Stephanie. We have like a core set of hours in the office that we're supposed to be available for clients and stuff. But if a permit or a project has to go out, we kind of have to stay and grind to get it out. So I've been here for 14, 16-hour days sometimes, but normally my day is only 8 hours. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. Next question.
The next question, if any participants would like to come live and ask our panelists questions, feel more than happy to right now. Give you guys a few seconds if anyone would like to come live. If not, no worries. And our next question for the panelist is, what challenges do you face in your work field? And anybody can go first.
I'll go first because mine's a big one. I went into my field knowing basically nothing. With my background, they hired me based on the fact that they knew I could adapt to the lab environment. I was already familiar with the lab environment, so I would be able to pick up whatever the lab testing may be. So the hardest challenge that I face on a day-to-day basis right now is just learning what I'm doing and what the results mean. I'm not only testing the soil and testing the rock, is knowing what the results mean. So obviously you pick things up as you go. You're never going to start a job and know exactly everything, how to do everything from start to finish, but it's just always a learning curve, and you have to remember that.
I'd have something to add as well. So I got my job right out of college, and again, you can do all the schooling and it still not be fully preparing you for work. So one of the biggest challenges was juggling a management position, students, and office work all in one day. So it's always different having one day to the other. I could have an entire day of like office work planned out basically and paperwork to fill out, and then get completely sidetracked with a whole day of lab experiments and students and questions. And so, one of the challenges is balancing the workload, definitely.
Yeah, that's amazing. I like how everyone kind of has different challenges throughout their job field. Do we have any of the other panelists that would like to explain their challenges throughout their work? If not, I will hand it over to Mac for our next question.
Okay, perfect. So our next question is co-op beneficial in university?
Sorry, you kind of cut out. What was the question?
Is co-op beneficial in university? So is there like co-op in high school that you could take to help you without university or college?
Well, I took co-op in college, and I can't speak to necessarily what the university co-op program was like or what it is in school, but for me, co-op was extremely beneficial for me in deciding where I wanted to kind of pursue my career. For me, my dad is in a similar industry, and I just always envisioned myself taking the same path as him. I got a co-op with the city of Hamilton doing, in the wastewater industry. And it wasn't a career path I originally thought for myself, but, I figured it was a good opportunity and something to try out. It was an 8-month thing. So I figured there's no harm in giving it a shot. And I absolutely fell in love with it. And that's entirely where I focused my efforts once I went back to school. I'm focusing on that. So I couldn't recommend it enough. I think there's a lot of benefit also to graduating with having some actual real life experience, and just even it makes you more valuable to your future employers as well. To actually, to learn things in school is great, but to have that hands-on experience, I think really speaks volumes, and kind of more to Chris's point, really helps when you to know what you're doing when you've actually had that experience, right? Like you can learn about it in school, but until you do it, it's a very different experience. So I would recommend it if you have the opportunity.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, that's perfect. Does anybody want to add?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the exact same train as Stephanie. I had co-op through college, but I also did co-op in high school. So I stayed an extra year, the year 13, and did 2 co-ops. Specifically, I guess for my my purpose, I did one in the field. So I actually co-opted at a construction company, and we did on-site work. And then I co-opted in an architecture firm. So I kind of got the the hands-on experience as well as the drafting experience, and that was life-changing. That probably helped me so much in making my decision what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I bet it helps like having like at least a little bit of experience before you go into this field fully. Does anybody have anything else to add?
I do. I did the same thing as Jonathan. I did both co-op in high school and college, and it was a really good experience, and it also gives you connections in the field. So when you do look for your job, you already have people that have seen you working in the field and like know you personally. So, you know, connections are very important when looking for jobs, because you can hand a resume into any old place, they can read it and dismiss it because they don't have that one-on-one personal connection with you. So I also found it very helpful too, getting to know the field as well that way.
Well, yeah, thank you. That's perfect. If anybody has anything else to add, please feel free.
Oh, just to wrap it up a little bit, but I ended up doing 3 co-op terms in my college time, and those were phenomenal because I hadn't had any job experience prior to that. And when it was my interview time, I actually one professor of mine told me to make this portfolio of every job I do. So all of my jobs were co-op. So I ended up taking pictures and just putting a little bit of information. And I kid you not, during my whole interview, we just ended up looking through that portfolio. So technically I was just directing my own interview. It was great. So highly recommend it.
Okay, yeah, perfect. If anybody has anything else to add, then we'll go on to the next question.
Perfect. That's great. This is kind of a question from myself, but from your co-ops in high school, what courses would you recommend taking that is beneficial to this field of STEM? Would anybody like to go first?
I can. So definitely sciences like biology, chemistry. Definitely having a baseline of basic chemistry is extremely important in your co-op and in like college and any university. You want to have at least your basic knowledge of chemistry so that when you go into it, it's not so confusing. As well as if you have the ability to do a job prep course, I guess, in high school, because when I was in high school, I did a job prepping course, which was great. They show you how to make your resume and all that stuff. So that's really helpful as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? Okay, perfect. We can hand it over to Mac for our next question.
Hey, sorry, Katie, I'm breaking up a little bit. Can you take over for a bit?
Yeah, no worries. Our next question well, first of all, does any of our panelists would like to come live and ask a question? If so, you can text in the chat and you can come on camera, or right now is the best time to come on. If not, no worries. Give a few seconds. Right now in the STEM community, what careers would you say is in the highest demand for now and in the future? Do we have anyone that would like to talk about that?
I can go. So I've seen a lot of jobs coming up available right now in the environmental industry, as well as agriculture, and food industry is a big one right now, as well as microbiology specifically is obviously very popular and in demand right now because of COVID. And really, I guess in the research field, if you're looking into research, jobs that have funding are big right now. Because if you go into a field that doesn't have a lot of funding, you're going to get on contract work, and that contract is based off your grant money. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Thank you. Would anybody else have anything to add to that?
I think like again, water, wastewater, that's a technology that, you know, as it's a big big technology boom that I think we're hoping to see with water and wastewater. So I think as the years kind of go on and we realize, you know, like water scarcity is going to become a problem. So more and more technologies are being developed and they're looking at that. So I think that will also be a huge industry moving forward and one that's going to be incredibly important, not only to Niagara, but I think just in general globally. I think it's going to be something you're going to see kick off really well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Is there anything else that anybody else would like to add, or are we good to move on?
I can just add on to that. Just on my side of
Perfect.
the water wastewater industry as well, I've noticed a big jump in the eagerness of operations to automate processes and add more technology to the plants and collect more data so that they can optimize their processes. So I see technology being more integrated in the water wastewater industry.
And that really helps us too. Thanks, Derek.
No problem.
Yeah, that's perfect. Does anybody else have anything to add? I love how everyone's like has different points on that, which is amazing for everyone. Anything else anyone would like to add, or are we good to move on? Okay, we'll move on. For your advice for students moving from the transition to high school to university or college, what would you recommend for them? Would anybody likes to go first?
I can go.
Perfect.
So I did college, and so I did my technician's diploma first, and then technologist second. So that's 3 years of schooling. And then if I wanted to, I could transition from there right into third year of an undergraduate degree, because what the universities are now doing is partnering with colleges. So if you're not sure of what you want to do, college is a good start. One, it's not as expensive, and two, it gets you a good groundwork of where you want to go. And then you can move into your undergraduate degree right into third year and only do 2 or 2.5 years of university. Or if you just want, you can go into university and do the 4 years of university, which I recommend as well.
Well, they're both amazing paths on steps to get there. Would anybody else have any other things they would like to add, or totally different?
I'll jump in. I think the first thing to remember, I don't know if everyone was in the same boat as me, but don't be devastated if your grades aren't the same. I went right into university and I just wasn't quite as prepared as I thought I would be, which I don't blame anyone. It's just a learning curve and everyone has to adjust. But just take it day by day. Like going into university and even when I went to college, like my biggest thing was having a calendar with all my dates on it. Because usually right off the bat, they give you a syllabus and you have your entire terms breakdown, which is a bonus if your professor is doing that. But it just makes it easier to organize your time, because that is like the biggest thing you need to remember is time management is for sure key when it comes to university and college.
Yeah, that's amazing advice for students. Is there anything else that anybody else would like to add, or are we good to continue?
I did the partnering program that Andrea was talking about. So I went to McMaster, then I went to Mohawk, and then from Mohawk, I'm now doing the BTech program that's sponsored through with McMaster. So it's a 2-year program now to continue on my education. I think that's something that I wasn't even aware of when I applied out of high school. So if there are programs, and like she said, if you're not interested or if you're not sure exactly what you're interested in, college is a great option to kind of get your foot in the door. And you know, your more education is never a bad idea. So even if you do college and you decide that's not what's right for you, that still, you know, helps you get to where you want to go. And I think it's important to remember it's not a race. Do what's right for you, and it's for your future in the long run. So there's no point in rushing it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great advice for everyone. Is there any other people that would like to add, or are we good to continue? Okay, I think we're good to continue. Participants, of course, if there's anything you'd like to say, please come free now and you can ask it live, or you can write in the chat and I will hand it out and I will say it to the panelists. Our next question from our participants is, what inspired you to come back to Niagara? Like in the STEM community, there are many jobs outside of Niagara, in Toronto, in the US. What inspired you to come back here?
Can I go on this one? I have visited all around Ontario. I have lived in many different cities and towns. And so I did not start out in Niagara. I did not see myself actually ever ending up in the St. Catharines, Niagara region. And then I got this job opportunity and moved here, and I absolutely loved living here. So, out of all the places I've been, it's definitely a really great place to live, to work. And, it's really important too to enjoy not only working where you are, but living where you are, because that's going to be your day to day.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. And I like how you didn't just like start in Niagara, you like started somewhere else and then came back. Is there anybody else that would like to add on what inspired them to come back to Niagara?
Well, I grew up in Niagara, and when I left, I also didn't really have any intention of coming back. But having lived in other places and worked in other municipalities and regions, I had done some consulting work with Niagara, and it was just the atmosphere and just even having a familiarity with the community that you're working in. I just felt that it was just something that I wanted to do and kind of give back to. And when I came back, having that work-life balance, and I feel like you really have a sense of community here. Maybe that's just me from being from Niagara, but you always feel like you're connected to the community, and kind of when you give back, you can see it in your own backyard, and that's something I really appreciate. Plus, it's great. I love Niagara in the summers as well, so that's an added bonus.
Yeah, Niagara is a beautiful place. This is a little question for you, Andrea. From working in Hamilton and different other places and then coming back to Niagara, what is the differences you saw throughout the jobs, and which ones you like, why is Niagara you prefer?
Well, I grew up in Cambridge, and being in the KW area, you could literally get mugged in the streets. So, living there wasn't my ideal area, and it's a very big tech area there right now. But what I like about the Niagara region is it's also a large tech area, and there is a lot of job opportunities in the Niagara region. And there's different opportunities. Like if you wanted to work in the farm and field industry, you could work in the wine industry and doing more farm work as well, and also not be worried about getting mugged in the streets. It's nice, and the area is just great to be able to visit places around the Niagara region. Like Niagara on the Lake is beautiful, and you really have that city to rural life, which is a nice balance versus living directly in the city.
Yeah, perfect. That's awesome. Would anybody else like to add on to what inspired them to come back to Niagara, or are we good to move forward?
Mine wasn't so much inspiration. It was just, I'm very much a homebody, and I didn't want to leave my family, and I wanted to stay as close to home as I could. So I grew up in Niagara Falls, and getting a job in Niagara Falls was a blessing because that's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, I think I'd probably be the same way. I'd probably want to come back to Niagara and be with my family. Yeah, so we actually received a question from one of our participants. Would you like to come on live and say your question, please?
Yes, my question was, what are some of the many jobs that involve technology?
That's an amazing question. Do we have any panelists that would like to talk about that?
They cut out there. What was the question?
Lily, would you mind repeating that?
Yep, no issues. My question was, what are some of the many jobs involving technology?
I think the whole panel is a great example of different jobs in technology. I was actually just talking to Emily because she works with me. We were talking privately, but a lot of people don't realize what the technology jobs actually are. And I think that there's a lot more than you really think. Like, we all have different backgrounds and we all have very different jobs. So it's not really so much an answer. It's just the technology field is really broad, and I think we all individually have the ideal job or perfect jobs to describe what a technology diploma could get you.
Yeah, I actually totally agree on that statement. Like, when I saw the list of panelists, even like myself, I'm still like a student, so I'm still kind of learning about the technology field. And when I saw you guys were all like different kind of types of technology and like how different types of technology can get you different places, which I thought was really cool. Do we have anybody else that would like to talk?
Can I add in on this?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, again, there's tons of different fields you can go into, but you can also go into the more office-like jobs. So like you could do a sales rep job, not even like for pharmaceuticals, or you can do sales rep for technology. Like we have HPLCs and things like that, and they break down. And so I need to fix them as a technologist. I need to know how to fix them, but you can also call them out to come fix them, or you call them to come do sales reps jobs. So if you're looking to get a new instrument, they can come in, show you how it works, and then you can work also in that kind of field setting as well. So you're not just doing in-lab work or in other field work, you can do sales work as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love how the technology field has really broadened and passed more. Like, when I think of technology, and when like it first comes to mind, I think of like a computer and everything, but I like to see how like it's really not, and it's like really broad in different spectrums, which is really cool to see. Do we have any other panelists that would like to add on, or are we good to move on? Okay, perfect. So again, if any participants would like to come live and ask questions, it's always very recommended. It's great to hear from everyone. And our next question, unless anyone would like to come live, give it a few seconds. Yeah, our next question is, what would be your most important advice for someone coming to high school regarding the technology field, and what you would say to them? Like, if you were to redo if say you were back as a high school student and after knowing all you know today, what would you say to someone, or what would you wish you knew going into your field? Do we have anyone that'd like to get us started? I know it's kind of a question where you have to kind of think.
For me, I think going into civil and into technology was kind of a very broad spectrum. I think what I wish I had kind of looked into more what the career paths could actually have been. I was very single-minded, I think, when I was looking at my career paths, just because that was the thing I had stuck in my head. But there's such a broad spectrum, and I think it was kind of touched on with technology is in general such a broad spectrum. But there's so much you can do with it. Like, when I first started, I was doing inspections and literal, like, just crawling around in sewers doing inspections, like doing replacements, and now I do project management on the region side. Like, there's just a vast array of options, and it really just look at, I think, what you want for yourself and the end goal, and kind of try and plan how you can get there with these steps, and what will benefit you.
That's amazing advice. And I think, like, even listening for myself, I would take that advice in the future, and for sure think about in my career path. Do we have any other panelists that would like to kind of give a bit more advice and their thing that they would say to someone?
I'll jump in. I think one thing that's good to remember is you don't always start and finish in the same program. I know very few people who started a program and finished the same program, got the same degree, got the same diploma. And the great thing kind of about STEM is that your first year is very general. I would probably say we all took the majority of the same classes in your first year. So it's easy to switch and you still have time to decide. I personally looked up a few programs the night before we had to apply and jumped into a program, and I finished the same program, which doesn't happen very often. But you guys have all these tools now and you can look into what you actually want to go into. But my only advice is that it's okay to change your mind. You can go back to school or you can start something and finish something else. There's always movement in there.
Yeah, that's amazing points. And I like how, like, when I think of university, I think like kind of like you're stuck to that program for life. But of course, I guess you can change. That's really good advice for everyone. Do we have anybody else that would like to add anything? Okay, perfect. I will hand it over to Mac for our next question.
Okay, thank you, Katie. So another question we have is that you guys had to overcome in high school or throughout college, or even just in your career right now?
I don't know about the other women in this chat, but I know when I went to school, we were very outnumbered as women in the classes, and I've seen that kind of in the industry as well. It's definitely changing. You can see more and more women being involved and that type of thing. But I think that was something that was definitely a little bit of a challenge, and kind of you hear about it, but when you're actually immersed in that situation, I think to just kind of actually see it, and it's a totally you just make it your own, and really focus on yourself and do the best you can do. But it is something I think to be actually aware of as a woman, and to really consider that that's what you want to do and press on.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, even in school today, we still have problems with that. I see in our student body. Does anybody else want to add on to that?
I will. Hi. So yes, I do agree. It can be overwhelming as a woman in STEM, and especially when you get to a career. And I mean, out of context, I'm only 4'9", so I'm very short. And I'm always getting mistaken as a student walking around. So it's one thing to be a woman. It's another thing to get asked, "Are you in the right building?" And you're like, "Yeah." So you just have to persevere, push through that, and prove that you are there to do your job, and you're there not just as someone sitting in the background. The other thing is, for me, one thing that I did overcome was my final year in college. I ended up with a severe concussion. And so I lost the ability to speak for about a week. And of course, it was right before exams. And so, one thing that I had to overcome was that loss of not only speech, but the ability of my mind. And that's a big factor in the work, and STEM is using your mind for everything. And so it was just something to persevere through. So even if you have challenges with speech or memory or communication, you can still do your job well, and you can still get through your courses and classes, because there are always people there that will be there to support you. And especially if teachers or faculty, or your bosses down the road, they will be there for your support as well. So, yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you. Does anyone want to add on to that? Or are we good to move on? Oh, okay.
Sure, yeah, I'll talk. So being a younger guy in construction industry, when I step on the job sites, it's really funny to see a site supervisor or a general contractor. They're old, weathered men, and they look down and think, this kid doesn't really know anything. You just kind of have to stick by your guns and show them what you actually know.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jonathan. If anybody else has anything to add, please feel free to. If not, oh, Derek.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to add, kind of in that same vein, in school, you learn a lot of technical skills and a lot of things that help you in your job. But a big part of my job, for instance, that you don't learn in school is interfacing with. So there's operators at plants who operate the water and wastewater plants. And when we come in to do work, you have to maintain relationships with them, keep them happy, explain to them what's going on and how it's going to affect them. And there's a lot of interpersonal relationships that you develop. And that's kind of a challenge coming out of school when you don't really learn that much in school. And I think that's a big thing that you can learn in your co-op, and try and keep that in mind.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody have anything to add? Okay, perfect. I'll pass it over to Katie.
Perfect. That was amazing. Actually, a really interesting question to listen to. Any of our participants have anything to ask, welcome to come message me in the chat or come on live. Both works. Give everyone a few seconds. Okay, perfect. Our next question from our participants is, in your job, at your company, is there any co-ops available for a high school student? And if not, what would you recommend a high school student to do to get experience in this position, in this STEM field? Anyone is able to come, that'd be amazing.
I can go. So our lab has had several high school students in the past do a cooperative program through us. And so really what it comes down to is, my boss, he looks at your grades and then looks at your overall summary, and he chooses from a list of applicants. So he'll do an interview and, then decide which student he'll pair you with. If he decides to take you on at the lab, he'll decide which student to pair you off with. And then you get to work on their thesis project with them. So basically you get to do a little bit of in-lab work, you get to have your own lab book, your own little work. So he also gives you your own kind of job within working with them as well. So we've had 2 students that I've worked with from high school, and they've all been really great. And they've done their own work. And one student we had last year, the year before that, she ended up making a new mixture that got used in one of the projects that we ended up selling to a company to use for glass coating. So she actually contributed to it, and her mixture was chosen out of all the ones that my student was originally working on. So yeah.
That's really cool, actually, to hear that a co-op from high school actually made a difference at your lab, and that's amazing. Is there any other jobs from our panelists here that they would like to speak on this?
Yeah, so my firm, we actually had a co-op student before COVID, and then he obviously couldn't come back after COVID. He graduated or whatever he did. But yeah, a good way to get in is just show you're interested, and the employer will definitely see that and see if you have a drive for it or something. They'll hopefully recognize that. I know my first part-time job at an architecture firm came from staying late to finish drawings. So, if you show the initiative to stay and put in the time, you'll get recognized for it.
Perfect. Yeah, that's amazing. Would anybody else like to speak on this, or are we good to move on?
I know there are a lot of consulting firms within the GTA and Niagara that do a lot of summertime consulting for an internship and co-op programs for students. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity in that, specifically around the summer for, it's peak construction time. So a lot of technology, a lot of different companies do look for students around then. So that's a great time. And also just, internships, co-ops, those are great networking opportunities, not just for your technical skills, but to kind of market yourself, because you never know who you might meet in those situations that could lead to, lead to something in the future. So the more opportunities, the better.
Yeah, that's amazing. Did anybody else like to speak on this topic, or am I good to pass it over to Mac? Mac, you can take it from there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So just to help some of the other people, what are some pros and cons in working in the like lab that you have or your position that you have at the moment?
Okay.
I'll jump in. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Krista.
Okay, mine's kind of silly, but my pro is that I get to play with dirt and rocks every day, which is kind of cool. Not many people can say that. I actually get to like break rocks in the lab. We put it under super high pressure, and I measure it anyways. Con, so far I haven't really had any. It's just been like a really good learning experience. I work in a lab, obviously, but my job personally isn't 100% lab work. There's also desk work. I'd say it's actually 50-50, and I'm actually out in the field sometimes too. So I don't think I have a con.
So I was going to say for my pro, I really enjoyed the mix of, desk work and then also being able to, go out to sites and see the progress that, your projects are actually making. So the job that I have right now really does allow for that. So you can work from your sites. If you want to be there for something exciting going on that day, you can absolutely be a part of that. Certain things you have to be there for. And then other days, if you have to focus on a lot of the paperwork side of things, then you're in the office. And I really enjoyed that aspect because it really keeps things, especially now when everyone's working from home, and I know hopefully this isn't forever, but it is nice to have a change of scenery. And I think that this field in general really allows for that. I don't know if everyone else feels the same way, but that's what I've come across in my personal experience. The con, it is a lot of there is a lot of different aspects that technology can take. I personally found myself in a role that has a lot of financial management as well, which is not necessarily something I anticipated in this career, but that's something that's not maybe my favorite part of the job.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. Does anybody have anything else to add for their different occupation?
Yeah, so I'll actually start with the con first because it's a weird way, but I can sometimes be stuck, inside at a desk for endless amounts of hours. Feels like looking over paperwork or looking over drawings or notations and stuff. But the pro is huge because it's super rewarding to drive around town and be the obnoxious kind. Like see that building right there? Yeah, I had something to do with that. Or see that thing over there? See that little mess up in that corner? I told them to do that. It's cool. It's really fun.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. Does anybody want to add, or are we good to move on? Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left. Does anybody just want to add to their topic or anything they want to talk about?
Sure. I think I just really wanted to drive home the women in STEM. I really feel like, they may be kind of underrepresented at the moment, but I think it's something that's growing, and the community that is there, I really find that, the women that are, already existing and, established professionals have really made an effort to kind of mentor the incoming women, and the community I just feel is so great and so welcoming. So I hope that, that people take that into consideration, that there may not be the same quantity, but the quality is absolutely there. And I think it will, come as things start progressing. So I really, encourage women not to be, to shy away from things like this. Like I never imagined when I was in grade 11, applying to schools that I would be looking at a career in wastewater. That was not, that never really seemed something that would be up my alley, but, explore your options and just do what you like. And, really, I think everyone, just focus on what you like to do, and you can make it work for you if you have the passion and the want.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I know in high school right now, even like when I'm signing up for classes, I'm one of the only girls in my like technology classes or construction classes, and that's just something we have to change.
That's awesome. Like, good for you. And that's something you should feel. I think you should feel empowered about, and you're really setting the mark for future, right? So good for you.
Yeah. Perfect. So does anybody have anything to add or final thoughts?
I just wanted to add something. I have worked with some really great people and some very supportive people as well. So, it is a challenge as a woman in science, but it is also a very rewarding challenge. And you will always find someone who is in your corner and working with you. So, just keep doing what you love to do.
Yeah, thank you. So this about wraps it up for our day-to-day. If anybody has anything else to say, please feel free now. Students, panelists, anybody. If not, we just want to say thank you guys so much for coming out today and taking time out of your busy schedules to talk to us and help us today. I know I definitely learned a lot, so just thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for all the panelists for coming out. It was amazing to hear all the advice you guys had. And I'd also like to thank all the participants for joining us today and hoping you guys learned lots and how you could help your STEM career in the future. It was nice talking to everyone. And I think, Mac, do you know if we're supposed to leave the rooms or do we wait for them to close?
I believe we can leave the rooms, yes.
Yeah, perfect. So unless anyone has anything else to say to the participants, we are just about finished. And it was amazing talking to everyone today and learning such great advice. And thank you for the participants for coming along and learning about such great advice.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie and Mac, for keeping the questions coming. You guys made it easy for us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.